The workshop meeting is officially called to order. Will the city clerk please read the roll?
Mayor Black,
Present?
Vice Mayor Douthert, Commissioner Lister,
Here.
Commissioner Hodges,
Here.
Commissioner Oakley.
Here.
And Madam Mayor, if it can just be noted that Commissioner Douthert is out due to a medical situation in his family and that you can excuse his absence at the next meeting.
Okay. Before we get started, I just want to address this memo that came through, and it was for a special commission meeting following this meeting. However, that can only be called by myself or a majority of the board, so that meeting will not take place at this time. The first item on the agenda is discussion of the 4th of July event. Any comments on this? Well, it looks to me like, from what I see, that we should just go ahead and go forward and spend the money we have for the fireworks and not add to it.
You want to increase the 25 grand from the
26, it was 26. I think it's down to 21, and that's, Madam Mayor was saying, we're budgeted with 21. Let's just stick with 21. I think that's what she was
Exactly.
saying.
and that'll include the $5,000 donation.
Yeah, negative.
No. No, it will not.
What are we doing with the $5,000 donation?
It's not going to happen. The $5,000 donation was withdrawn.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the waiver of the fees for the bone fishing tournament.
Madam Mayor, just so we can revisit that, so in these workshops, staff need to be at least directed in which way we want to go. So just so you're aware, we're going to decrease, if I follow everyone correctly, we're going to decrease last year's show by $5,000. Because $5,000 of the budgeted money needs to be paid for to pay for the barge.
Correct. We're going to just use the budget amount for $21,000.
Okay, all right, so if the,
Manager, sorry. We have the barge that we're going to need for that. Okay, we're all set?
pardon?
The barge,
Yeah, so,
it's all set.
yeah, we have the barge is always drama for Mr. Marscano, but we have that. So now we have $26,000 in the budget, and then we always have a $5,000 donation. So to pay for the barge, it needs to come out of that $26,000, which means you'll decrease your show by $5,000.
I have a question about the waiver of the fees. Well, how much is the fee?
If we're on to the next item, very similar to that special workshop that we had right before the new board was sworn in. The fees are approximately $3,000 a day for the fields. There's also some other minor costs included in that. They take care of most of anything and everything in terms of sanitation, cleanup, so on and so forth. Staff recommendation would obviously be that, A, waiver of the fees, but B, the fields need to be returned to us in the condition that they were given to them for the festival or the fishing tournament. And again, just like we said at the last meeting, we've been doing this since, I want to say forever, but Amy's in the audience, 2004. So it's a major tournament that brings a pretty good economic impact depending on how you measure it to Madeira Beach. But it's certainly up to you, but they would need to know today if there's no one in favor of waiving those fees, because that's a relatively sizable fee that they had not anticipated.
We do not waive the sanitation fees. Those are fixed costs, and there are fees that are paid by the Old Salts.
But aren't we just talking about fees the other fees that they're going to pay?
Basically, rental fees is the only thing that you're considering waiving.
Is there anyone that ever pays these fees?
Sure.
Who? Seems like we always waive them.
Doug, is Doug on? Yeah, Doug, can you come on up?
Good afternoon. Hello? Okay, good. Yeah, we've had, when we started with the concerts out here, they had all paid the initial fee. The fee was basically put into place, it's an ordinance now, it was put into place once it was established primarily by the Visit St. Pete Clearwater Group, because they pay for the softball tournaments, the NCAA tournaments that are out here, and a couple of the youth tournaments during the year they pay for as well. $3,000 was the number they gave us, so that's the number that we went with.
Question was, who pays for them?
I'm
Who's
sorry.
ever paid the fees?
I said the promoters of the concerts have paid for the fees, okay? And Visit St. Pete Clearwater has paid the fees when they've been billed them, yes.
How do we decide what fees are waived, or is that something the commission?
That's up to you guys, yeah.
It's up to the commission?
Yep.
Do we really need to waive any fees at all?
Like I said, my job's to read the ordinance book and to apply the costs. And then I hand it to the people, and then they come to you if they have any problems with the costs. If they don't, then they just pay them, and everything's good.
I'm just trying to save the city money, so I think maybe we just don't waive the fee.
And I think it goes a lot deeper than that, and it's just because we haven't had this conversation, but for instance, charitable events such as Rotary or the Little League, or, Little League's a perfect example. If they're gonna have a fundraising Little League and sell cookies and soda out there, they're not gonna be able to, pay a $3,000 fee to rent the field for a day. So we were kind of looking at this from a macro concept versus, for-profit and non-for-profit is kind of how I've handled it administratively. Back in the day, Commissioner Oakley was part of that, Commissioner Lister, you were part of that. Every event came in front of the board, and you guys decided on that, and then you decided when we were having, like I said, last Saturday, we had 4 events going on at the exact same time. Then we handled it administratively. But to have a family reunion on the event park, or there was a remembrance of a child that was, lost due to Phil Fest, melanoma fundraiser. When it came to those types of things, to charge those types of people or those types of organizations $3,000 to $6,000 or whatever $1,000 for a weekend while they're trying to raise money for a good cause didn't seem to make sense to me. So that's how I handled it administratively, and currently that's still the process. But I think we can see this kind of moving back to the commission, which is fine. But we're going to be dealing with this issue on an ongoing basis every single month. The fee, again, was dictated by an organization that was more than capable of paying $3,000 for a field because they have a budget, they make money doing it, so on and so forth. There's plenty of organizations that want to do something good for the city and good for just for a good cause that can't afford a $3,000 fee. I'm thinking of a seawall fishing tournament, for example. If they need to rent the event field to have that for half a day, they're not going to pay $3,000 to do that. So we'd be eliminating a lot of events, which is if that's the route we want to go, that's understandable. But just know that we're going to have a lot of people looking elsewhere than coming to Madera Beach.
I can see where we do it for charitable events and waive the fee, but the bone fishing tournament's not a charitable event, so I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Or is it?
Pretty much everything the Old Salts does is for charity.
Oh.
I'd say let's waive the fee.
Yeah, I mean, we have the officer of the Old Salts here. I mean, Amy's here if you want to ask her any of those questions. I mean, and to be quite honest with you, Mayor, I'm not trying to torture Amy, but we put her on item number 3, or where are we at? On item number 2, and then the absolute last item on the agenda, so you may want to discuss both those items right now so she can get on with her life, but it's up to you. She'll stay for the meeting as well.
Which number are you talking about?
The last one about the waive.
Yeah, Amy owns, she's an officer of the Old Salts, but she's also president or partner of Squid Ink, and so I apologize for not noticing that I put you basically on first and last on the agenda.
As far as Old Salts and the Bone event, it is in its 6th year. Sorry. A little short. Started 6 years ago. It is a fishing tournament and a barbecue tournament all in one. Like I said, all of our events are for charity. Basically, the three things that all of our money goes to is, one, we educate and promote the social and economic impact of the fishing industry. We also help boost tourism and recreation within Madeira Beach and the Gulf beaches, especially in non-season months. We also provide opportunities, and this is the biggest one for us, to raise funds through the events for the research and data collection for fisheries of Gulf of Mexico. We have children's fishing programs. We have monthly educational fishing seminars, and we also put on our events here to help other kids fish and hopefully, start love fishing like it from the fishing village that we come from. We've been doing it for 40 years in this community. It's been before me. It's going to be after me, hopefully, unless you guys decide to enforce fees. It will greatly reduce what we can do. So I guess that leaves it up to you, and if you need more than that, I'll be willing to answer any questions.
I have no questions. As
Didn't
far-
the Old Salt give us a check last year?
Last year, we donated $10,000 towards the recreation fields on top of
So it's not
making
like
sure
you're
of
not paying any fees at all.
making sure we cleaned up our messes too as we made them.
I'd be okay with waiving the fee in that case.
I'm all for that.
Madam Mayor, along those lines, though, on the next agenda setting meeting, I think we obviously have to establish some sort of criteria, either if you want it to be maintained administratively in regards to this type of thing, or if you want to see every single one of these, because there's quite a bit of them, and then either way that we handle it, which I don't care one way or the other, I think we have to establish some sort of criteria, like we both just said, charitable events, we probably would consider waiving the fees versus, something else, but we are going to have people say, how come they get it waived and we don't get it waived, and so we got to obviously, codify that in some fashion.
That makes sense. Oh, yeah, we're going to do the last one, which is, this is the waive contract. And the question is, are we going to extend the contract, which is going to expire in October?
Here to answer any questions you might have about it. I'm not exactly sure what you're wanting to review about it.
One of my main questions was that the squid ink is not active in Sunbiz
Yes.
and hasn't been for quite a while.
Well, last week when I was here, I heard that, and I talked to my accountants, and they are working on rectifying it. It has to be done.
Since 2011, you would have thought that you'd, but
Not something
anyway,
personally, but yeah, it will be taken care of.
okay, that's fine. We need to still bid it out. It needs to go back out for bid instead of just renewing the contract.
Okay. Am I going to be finishing the contract would be one of my questions.
Excuse me?
Are you going to be canceling my contract, or are you going to be finishing it out for the year? Still have 2 more issues left. It would be renewable in October.
I would say we would finish the contract out and then rebid it.
As long as, that you're current in Sunbiz by the next meeting.
I can probably have that handled, yes.
Okay.
I don't believe the contract's actually pending on that, but I'm taking care of it anyway, so it doesn't matter. Is there anything else you want to ask about the newsletter or how it works or anything? Curious? While I'm here.
I found the newsletter very informative. You have a lot of information in there, a lot of good advertisements for the local businesses, and you keep it pretty current.
Try to do our best.
I'm very satisfied with it.
Thank you.
I know when you took over the contract, you increased it from 3 times a year to 4 times a year, which was nice.
Yes.
It keeps us up to date.
We also do work very closely with the city here, so anything that does need to be put in it is absolutely more than welcome.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'm getting a lot of feedback from people at home that they can't hear us on the microphone, so everybody, and I know the podium mic is still a problem, but everybody's got to speak into their microphone. In terms of the contract, it was up and would have been automatically bid out prior to that final edition, I guess is what we've been calling it, in October. So we'll have that drafted up probably, I don't know, July or August and get it out for bids so that we can see if we get any bids on that.
Okay, we'll go back to number 3, which is the format and location of the workshop meetings. Well, in my opinion on that, as I've said all along, is I would really like to have the meeting on the floor. And I'm not sure what we have to do to make that happen. I understand the microphone's a problem, but are there any other problems?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I think I sent you an email prior to the meeting that you might not have seen. Obviously, getting a microphone down there and handing a microphone or having something on the desk is fine. But, you know, in an era of transparency, we would not have the ability to broadcast, and the cameras in here aren't adjustable to the point of creating a way for them to view a square down there below. So I don't know if there's a way, if you want to bring the seating closer to the dais, or we have to put in a new system, and it's going to cost some money. I mean, it's not a cheap way to do it, but I mean, we definitely have to be able to broadcast these workshops at home, and we can't do it from the floor.
Why can't you just put it right down here, because the cameras show right down there?
I mean, we could, I don't want to, I don't mean to sound sarcastic, I don't know what's the difference about sitting here or sitting up here. If you want to do that, yeah, we could probably make that happen and then have audience members talk to the podium right there, but I mean, they're going to be right in your face. I don't know, I didn't see much of a difference, but if that's what you're talking about, yes, I guess that's very possible. If you just want to lower yourselves off of the dais, that's doable.
We're looking for a more casual setting. And we used to do it. Terry, you remember that old room we used to be in?
We did it in a conference room for the
Right.
longest time. But then we actually, when Travis was elected mayor, we had him in front of the diocese in the other building too. But they just didn't plan on it in this building. They planned for us to stay up here. So in order for that to be done, I think it has to be, find out how much money it's going to cost before we just jump into that too. If we're, going to look at every dime, let's find out how much it's going to cost.
They can't hear you, Terry.
If we're going to do this, we need to find out how much it's going to cost to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
But it's something maybe we should look into and see what it does cost.
okay.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, the other issue is what Commissioner Lister said, doing it in one of those conference rooms, that was a very affordable system, but if you can tell, I mean, when we had maybe 10 people to come to the workshop meeting, that worked. We've got a deeper audience now, so I think it's either this room or that room. I just maintain this is a room that's used twice a month. It's made for these types of meetings, so we should utilize the technology that's in here. But I'm telling you right now, it's going to be at a minimum $10,000 or $15,000 to do this. I mean, it's not going to be cheap because it has to have broadcasting abilities. If we can manipulate the cameras to do what you just said right here, move the podium out of the way, we might be able to cut that number down. So we'll have to have the people that installed this system in, give them what you guys are talking about, and see what the number is.
Okay, it seems reasonable. Any more discussion on this one? Okay, the next item is discussion on charter officers.
What I wanted to do was post a city clerk's job, and hopefully we could get a city clerk that was certified, city clerk certified already, and request that in that part of the educational part in the posting.
I don't see any reason why we can't go ahead and post that.
I want to know why we're getting rid of the city clerk. I don't understand. You need to give me some specific reasons that you're getting rid of the city clerk, job performance-wise. I know it's personal, but tell me what the professional side is.
Because I would prefer to have a clerk that is already certified by the city clerk certification process.
When we hired most of our employees, they all get on-the-job training. When we hired Vince, he went out and got his GPCOA, and he turned out to be an exemplary employee. If you want people to be, to the T, ready to go to work, you're gonna have to pay the big bucks, and nobody's gonna come in here in this environment and do it. There's nobody going to put their resume in.
Why don't we put it out there and see who's available?
I just think that that's a terrible idea, Nancy. I really do. I'm sorry. I think it's a terrible idea. I think that it's just starting an atmosphere that's almost a hostile work environment. I don't understand. If I had a reason for getting rid of the city clerk, if you showed me her work performance was bad, telling me that she did something that she wasn't supposed to do, then I would be open for discussion. There's none of that has happened. This is simply personal, and I just won't support it. I won't support it.
I think maybe we would want to table this to another meeting.
No, I think it needs to stay on the agenda. We can discuss it at the next meeting, then we can put the requirements out there and get it going.
I think you're making a mistake. I really do. This is ridiculous, really. Cheryl does a good job at what she does. And even Amy, when she was here, Amy didn't have all the certification, but she was learning. And I feel like at this time it is a very personal thing. And I just want to say shame on you, basically. It's a shame. Why can't we just work it together instead of picking everybody apart? This is ridiculous.
Just leave it on the agenda.
Let's just leave it on the agenda. I'm sorry, we're going to take public comment at the end. I'm not familiar with the format of the workshops, and if I could get some assistance here.
The state statute that specifically requires you to give the public an opportunity to speak on every single agenda item, whether or not you want to include that and allow them to speak as each agenda item appears, you can do that, or you have them give it to them at the beginning of the meeting or the end of the meeting, but sometime during the term of the meeting, you have to have the public have the opportunity to speak, and that's state statute driven.
Previously, Madam Mayor, we've done it as they come along just because workshop agendas have been so lengthy that they want to speak to it when it comes up. But again, the city attorney is absolutely right. You can do it before, after, during, it's up to you. But
Do they get 3 minutes like they do in a normal meeting?
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right, that'll be fine then.
John Hendricks, 5'6". How about now? How about now?
You gotta lean right into
You
it.
got to get right into it, John.
How about now?
I'd bring it up.
Put it up closer to your mouth, Mr. Hendricks. There you go.
How about now?
Perfect.
Yeah. John Hendricks, 569 Normandy Road, Madeira Beach. Cheryl's done a really good job. I'd like to tell y'all that many, many people, including myself, didn't have the education for the jobs we went into. It was OJT. There's nothing wrong with that. I actually spoke with our mayor, Maggie Black, about that very thing. She agreed with me. So I don't see a problem with somebody that's been with this city for 23 years, doesn't necessarily have a certificate to hang on the wall, continuing to do the job if she's doing a good job. If we're bringing up job performance, we should probably bring up Commissioner Oakley's job performance with the city of Clearwater. Well, we know what that was like, don't we, Ms. Oakley?
That's enough. Thank you. Yes.
John Lipa, 399 150th. I have 31 years of senior HR experience. Organizational change is never easy, but it has to be done right. There's laws. You are, that position, your positions are all governed by certain statutes, Florida statutes, legal U.S. state statutes about civil rights, and you need to walk smartly and sanely through this. I did some quick research on the internet. I looked on the website of the organization that provides the certifications for this position. I looked at, there was maybe, I don't know, maybe 12 cities that had, or communities that had postings. I looked at the ones that were called cities as opposed to villages. And the ones that were called cities, there were 3. Of the 3, only 1 required the certification, 1 preferred it, and 1 didn't even care about it. All 3 of them wanted bona fide work experience for their candidates. So I ask you to think through it. That's all. Thank you. And I'll be happy to give you some HR advice if you need it.
Good afternoon. My name is Robin Belaski, and I live on 131st Ave here in Madeira Beach. I would just like to comment because I heard this discussion at City Council at our last meeting. First, I'd like to respond to Mrs. Crawford's assistance. I was recently selected to be on Planning Commission, which I was very pleased to be elected. And I had questions and this kind of thing. And Mrs. Crawford repeatedly got back to me. We even were texting one time, and I said, you don't have to answer me on Saturday night at 7:30. I just thought of it and got an email out with a question on my meeting. So I would like to report that her work efforts were very professional to me. I'd just like to offer this insight. When I graduated from college, I had a provisional teaching certificate. And I had so many years to get my permanent certification to be a teacher, which would allow me to be certified in a number of states. If commission at this time thinks that Mrs. Crawford should be certified, that's fine. I would in turn, and I think I heard rumblings at the last meeting that she was going to school to do that, or not, for certification.
I was going to start to begin my certification, but
I think what might be helpful, if you have concerns over that, is a timetable. Let her find out the calendar to get that certification, bring that back to you, and let her go in that direction of being permanently certified. And I sat here at the last meeting. We don't have a finance director or a planning director. I feel that we're getting bare bones to keep our city vibrant and alive. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, before the next person speaks, I'm getting blown up by people at home. They can't hear when anybody speaks at the podium. I know that mic is problematic. We've been working on it for years. You really got to get into that mic so people at home can hear you. Thank you.
Bill Mons, 13321 Boca Ciega Avenue here in Madeira Beach. I worked all my professional life as an engineer. I knew that part of the job was okay.
Close, and I'm sorry, but you just got to speak up.
Sorry, I thought I was speaking loud enough. I've lost myself. When I was in my professional life, I was an engineer. I knew that part of the job was doing the job and doing it well. But that wasn't all of the job. Part of the job was having the certifications and the training year after year as technology changed. It's just normal. So I endorse and encourage the commission to set requirements in job positions that are outside of and above just showing up and doing the job. Thank you.
Marv Merrill, 581 Crystal Drive, Madeira Beach. I'm not up here to really get into the debate about the city clerk one way or the other. That's strictly up to the majority of the commission. But it does bother me when I sit back and listened to Commissioner Lester talk about being fair and take your time and everything. And I'm reminded of Amy, who'd been here 32 years, and 3 or 4 months before she was fired, they gave her a complete 100% evaluation. A few months later, they fire her. So you talk about fairness. Where's the fairness in that? And by the way, why did you vote to fire Amy?
Amy resigned.
Pardon?
Amy resigned.
Under pressure. Well, you can call it whatever you want. She was let go. So anyway, let's talk about fairness and carry it through to both cases.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. We have a situation here that...
Address, please.
My name is Hugh Lamont. I live at 441 129th Avenue, Madeira Beach. We have a situation here that our city manager lost his certification with the Managers Association because of a relationship with the city clerk, who was not the city clerk at the time. The fact is that the city manager then married the same lady who he lost his certification for. The situation now is that he promoted that same lady to city clerk, which makes the situation worse because she reports to you and she has her husband as a city manager. And I don't think the two can work together like that. I said different bosses under the same job doesn't work. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, just point of order that I did not appoint Cheryl Crawford as the city clerk. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Hugh Gersh. I live at 14001 Gulf Boulevard. I'm here to express my opinion in regards to Shane Crawford and his wife. At the beginning, I'm like everyone else. Everybody moves where they read certain things in the paper and you're influenced by it, as I was. If somebody would have caught me on the right day, I'd have been the guy that said, get the rope and hang them. But I got to tell you, I've had time to think about it. And Shane is invaluable to the city. In the last 10 years, 15 years actually, that I've been here, I've seen a significant amount of improvement, and anybody that states differently evidently isn't paying attention. Now, my opinion is this. You can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I think some of us have come to the conclusion that we'd be better off without him. But where do we go from here? Who has the knowledge? Who has the background? Who has the ability that's already been proven to do what Shane has done? And in regards to his wife, that's a personal matter. Who the hell are we? Excuse me, I shouldn't say that. But who are we to step up to tell somebody how they should take care of their personal life? I mean, this isn't Russia. This isn't Nazi Germany. This is the United States of America. You do what you want with your spare time and with your private life. It's no one's business. And I think that we should look, this panel should look particularly at the achievements that have taken place over the years. Forget about all this stuff that's been put in the paper and, oh, he did this and she did that. It's all bull. And we know it. We know it. And we've got to sit down and think about what we're doing and what direction we're going. We can be vindictive. There's a lot of vindictive people in this particular area. I know because I've talked to them. But you know what? They should set that aside and look for the benefit of this city. So, in my opinion, Shane has done a great job. His wife has done a great job. We ought to think about that. Thank you for hearing me out. Appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Commissioner, City staff. My name is Jim Everett. I live at 15458 First Street East here in Madeira Beach, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I also work pretty much 7 days a week, 365 days a year, so it's not easy for me to make it 2 o'clock, but I felt it was important to be here today. I had the pleasure of serving on the city's planning board for 5 years. I chaired it for the last several years that I served. And during that entire time, our organization was supported by Cheryl. So I can only speak to her work ethic and her performance in that position. And it was exemplary. The packets that were prepared for us, the information and the detail that we required, the questions that were answered were all done in a very timely fashion. And I speak to work performance. So it's certainly your prerogative to establish a requirement for a certification. But I think that you have to give an experienced employee a reasonable amount of time to complete that certification. So I would encourage you to do that. I think it's the right thing to do. She served the city for many years and served it well. And I can only say what I've observed personally while I served on the Planning Commission, and that was that her service was exemplary. She did a great job. So I would say that certainly earns her the right to have the time to get the certification. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good afternoon. My name is Hushko Vahi. I live at 423 150th Avenue, Madeira Beach. I'd like to second every word that Jim Everett just stated. I've been in business for 28 years, and I've had certainly my share of working with employees and appreciating good ones. And it has been in the past for me very tough to really just let go of the bad ones. But the good employees that I've had, I've really, really appreciated, and I've given them everything I could possibly give them. Cheryl, in this case, has done the city wonders. I have personal, professional, actually not personal, but all professional relationship with her through the city of Seminole and the city of Madeira Beach. We have presented many, many projects in the past. We've designed several projects in this town. And she has been on top of her game. She's really, really good at what she does. She's really excellent at what she does. And it's a shame to even consider discussing a termination of an employee who is really good. The big question is why? You know, why would you want to let somebody who is really good go? Let's just think about that. As far as Commissioner Lester, I think he is the most amazing, the first-class commissioner person I've worked with, and I resent anybody challenging his ethics, his ability. So just want to put that out there. And as far as our city manager, Shane, you know, a lot of people may or may not know this, but when he engaged in a relationship with Cheryl back when, he cleared everything through the commission. He asked the question, is it okay to do this? If it's not okay, I won't do it. So, you know, he did the right things. He followed the right things. You know, I like him. He is the best. I just can't say enough good things about these two, and I would love to hear you guys just, you know, back off a little bit and give it more time, because you personally will be able to see what we're talking about. Give yourself a little time to experience what they have to give to you, to bring to this table, before you decide somebody's good or bad. Just give yourself a little time. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Linda Hine, 401 150th Avenue, Madeira Beach. Something just sprung to mind. Elections have consequences. People wanted to change in City Hall, and that's why y'all were elected. I think you need to consider the facts and determine what you think is best for the city, what you think is best for your working relationship. And there was a lot of people that commented to you about they would like to see Cheryl not work here anymore, and for a lot of reasons. But you're in the inside, you know, you get to look at it, but you will have support. And there's a lot of people can't be here at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but you were elected, and the mayor was turned out. So, you know, that means a lot. And you're now in a majority with the majority support. Just remember that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, now where do we go from here?
We ask you to take it off the agenda, Madam Mayor.
No, I think we should leave it on the agenda.
I understand that. There was obviously two groups here, Nancy. You know, there's been two groups in Madeira Beach for the longest time. And, you know, the information that's getting out there is wrong. You know, it's just bad information. It's terrible information. People are lying. And it really, really bothers me, you know, that this personal stuff gets brought up. But what doesn't bother me is calling out people that are lying to us. And folks, we're getting lied to. You know, there's a group there that stands up at every meeting and says we just need to start from scratch. And we don't need to start from scratch. The lady that got up here and spoke with the last workshop, Kathy, you know, she stands up here in front of us, and I am so open-minded. I am fair. I will listen to everybody, but she gets up and she tells me that she voted for you. I know Kathy. She lives around the corner from me. I went to give her my voting registration card, and she says, Terry, I can't sign this because I'm not a registered voter. Now, how can she say that to me when I walk up with my voter's registration card, and then she comes up here and says, I voted for you? Did she vote for you? Do you talk to Kathy?
I have no idea.
I looked at it more than once just to make sure that I heard it right. I voted for you. That's bad information, folks. It's a lie. It's a lie, and it's starting to fester. It's a personal thing over here. This right here is a personal thing. Stop this. This is bad for Madeira Beach, really bad for Madeira Beach. You've done it to me once, Nancy, and I'm not going to let you do it again. Take it off the agenda.
I don't want to take it off the
That's
agenda.
fine. I do.
I don't.
It's a lie. What you're trying to do is a lie. She is qualified to work as a city clerk. She's qualified. She doesn't have your certification. Neither did Amy. The one who did have the certification, the one who did have the certification is the lady that you and I hired, Ginger. And we hired this lady, and she didn't even do the minutes. Poor Amy had to work 14 hours a day when she first started just to get the minutes back together. We've already been through this hiring a city clerk. It didn't work out last time. It's not going to work out this time. We have something that's working. Let's stick with it.
I want to leave it on the agenda.
I want to take it off of the agenda. Okay, so now what do? John's not here. I'm sorry he's not here. I'm not being mad just because there's 2 on 2 here. I want it off the agenda.
I'm not sure procedurally, but as far as I know, I think it needs to be tabled if we can't come to a consensus.
I'm really tired of tabling, too. I'm tired of kicking the can. You know, this is going to come to a head. It's got to come to a head. Let's end this. We can't vote. It's a workshop. There you go.
Right.
Okay. Just want you to know, there's a lot of lies out there. Did I not just speak about that? Did I not just speak about that? Absolutely. And she was not registered, and she said she voted. I don't understand that. I know what camp she's in, though. I do.
I think the dialogue here is not allowed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Again, we don't have a consensus. The only thing I know to do at this point is just table it and then vote on it. don't speak out. Point of order. The next item is the active FMA grants requiring contract modification / revision approval. And I believe Marcy Forbes is here to speak about that.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, before we move on, and it's FEMA grants, not FFMA grants, but when we have to be very specific on what we're doing here today because it affects the next agenda, and there's an audience full of people here. So when you say table it, when you put it on the table, you have to vote to take it off of the table. So are you saying you want it on the next BOC agenda? And if that's the case, you need to have a majority vote on, or at least a consensus vote on the floor tonight to do that. So everything's process driven, and we're not maintaining order here today by any means. I need to know what you want on that next agenda so I'm not blamed for going one way or the other. So we're not done with number 4. We're not. We need to know where we go from here. And I'm sorry, but it lays with the 4 of you, and you need a majority to move on from a consensus standpoint. So you're not done discussing that item. And I'm sorry, and I know it's sensitive and it's personal, but we have to know how we proceed from here.
Can you explain to me how you, I mean, we all have an opinion, and at this point, it's 2 to 2.
There has to be a consensus to put it on the agenda. If there's no consensus, it does not go on the agenda. That doesn't mean that it can't come back at some future time where there is a request for it. But at this point, there is no consensus to put it on the agenda because it's a 2-2, I am assuming here, 2-2 split. Therefore, you don't have that consensus. So it wouldn't be tabled. There's no motion to table. And it wouldn't be a motion to postpone. You don't do those types of voting here. It's all done by consensus. So my suggestion to you is to just assume the fact that it's not going to be on the next agenda because you don't have a consensus here at this workshop meeting.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true, Madam Mayor. Hold on one second. We need to get it over with. We need to, we have to deal with this, folks. We have to deal with this. I mean, we have to deal with it. So I don't know what to say here, but I really want to get this talked through, and let's get it done, because you've got people in limbo here that either we're going to, get fired or not get fired. So, let's get this going, and let's talk about it. So I've told you my view. You know where I stand, exactly where I stand. There's no doubts out there. But to not put this on the agenda and to have this going for 2 months, that's not fair to the employees that are here. But I am probably right in saying that if we continue down the road that you guys want to go down, we're going to be in trouble with some more attorneys. But I really will make it a consensus to put this on the agenda so we can still talk about it, and there'll be a lot said. So that being said, let's put it on the agenda.
Okay, we have a consensus to put it on the agenda then.
Madam Mayor, then I would respectfully request that we move item number 12 up for discussion purposes immediately.
I think that can wait, and we can continue with the agenda as is.
Afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Marcy Forbes. I'm a senior project engineer with Doolin Associates. I live here at City Hall, 3 doors down on the right. I wanted to talk to you guys today about the FEMA grants. Wanted to bring this topic up during the workshop so that when it came before you the night of the Board of Commission meeting, you understood what you were looking at. So I tried to provide you a detailed packet kind of explaining what you were reviewing. The first contract is with 905 Bay Point. That's for the 2013-044. The commission has already, the city has already signed the contract portion of it with FDEM. Now we just have to update our contract with the property owner to reflect those revisions / modifications. So that's what's before you now. When it goes before you the night of the commission meeting, the homeowner will have executed the contract, and then typically the following day, the mayor would then execute the contract, and that, again, is between the city and the homeowner, reflecting the additional spend and extending the period of performance for the grant. And that's for the 2013-044. Do you guys have any questions? It's pretty straightforward. The next the next contract modification is for bear with me 1 second. Is for the 2014-006. This is a FEMA grant with the 7 recipients in it. And this particular modification is to be executed between the city and FDEM. What it's doing is it's increasing his budget spend. If you guys noticed, if you looked at it, the construction spends were really low, and nobody could really build a home for those award amounts. And so majority of the homeowners are now getting quotes and bid estimates, and so we're having to go back and request a budget increase approval. None of this increases typically the spend provided that's reimbursed to them by FEMA. It just typically gives the homeowner more of their own money to spend. So that's what you see before you related to David Freeman's residence. You will see a request in the future again because several of the other homeowners are also getting their budget estimates together. So this will happen again, and FDM's aware of it, but we're trying to group all of the next homeowners into one. So the contract will be modified.
Is that the reason that this one was singled out? Because he was getting the additional $20-something thousand added to his FEMA grant?
Exactly, and it's specific to his construction spend. If you saw, I think it was like 246, and now it's like 330-ish. I can look it up specifically, but obviously per square foot, it's difficult to build on the beach for that kind of spend, especially when you start looking at deep foundations. And now's a very expensive time to be building. So that's why it's specific to this, is to get them an increased spend. And again, it's their own money they're being allowed to spend. So, and that's specific to what it's for. Okay, thank you. Thanks, excellent. So when these come before you during the commission meeting and you guys approve them, then I'll just get with you the next day. You'll execute them, and we'll get those going. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any comments from the audience? From the commission? The next item is permanent lifetime parking passes for BOC members.
That's mine, Madam Mayor. I put that on this agenda so we could talk about it coming up. I've had several retired or previous commissioners that have left the board, obviously, but they've also left the city. And I think it would be a perk if we could extend a hand and say thank you for the work that you've done in the past for the city, and here's what we'd like to do back for you. So if you're on this board of commission, and then you would receive a parking pass for life. Just a perk.
Don't we basically already get that, just to get a
Only if you
sticker?
live in the city, Nance. If you ever move out of the city, like some people do, obviously. Some people leave the city. And I'm not saying they move out of state, but if they move locally, then they would have a perk to come back to the city and park for free because they have served the city. Just something to bring up.
It doesn't really seem necessary to me, I'm sorry.
Fine, thank you, Madam Mayor.
I thought it was a good idea.
You only been on?
Moving on. The next one is the update on the SB 330 and limiting the amount of local B45 tax back to $25. My comment on this is that the state is considering reducing these taxes, but they haven't actually voted on it yet. And before we do anything, I say we should just wait until they vote and then make a decision.
I think the only thing we need to be concerned about is whether we put the monies back into our next year's budget. You know, I don't think we should count on this money. You know, even if it comes in next year, it'll probably be gone the year after that or the year after that. It's gonna go away. And so I think you not only need to start weaning yourself off, I think you can just cut it off totally and not even put any money in this year's budget for business tax. But this year's budget hasn't been done yet, but I think that's a good idea to start.
I kind of agree with Maggie. I mean, and I agree with you too as far as the way the budget goes, but, you know, we ought to just wait on it and see what the state actually does with it before we deal with it.
The writing's on the wall, Nancy. It's gone.
That's fine.
It's gone.
But let them make their
It just takes
vote,
them a
and
long
once
time
it's
in
done, it's
Tallahassee to
done.
get it done. If they don't do it this year, they'll do it next year. I guarantee you. We've been doing this a long time. It's gone. And for us to keep being dependent on it is just it's not smart on our part. So let's get rid of it. We won't be dependent on it when it goes away, and we can use that, you know, we can make sure that we have enough money to do what we want to do so we don't have revenue that we don't have.
Well, I'm still of the opinion we should wait for the legislation to make a decision.
So you want to take this off?
It looks like we can. Next item is discussion of amending 6-2 of the code to change alcohol sales for restaurants on Sundays from 10 a.m. to 8 a.m. due to county code change.
I don't have a problem with leaving that on.
I have no problem.
Since it's a restaurant, you know, I don't see any problem with that neither. It's not like they're gonna be selling beer and wine at 7-Eleven at that time of the morning.
Madam Commissioner, I think that might be incorrect. I think this goes, anybody that sells.
So it wouldn't just be for the restaurant?
No, not the way that I've read it, and we can ask the city attorney to research that further. But I do believe it's all sales. And Tom, I don't know if you're.
It is all sales.
It is all sales, okay.
And so you're basically just, you know, there are some cities that are already willing to settle at 8 a.m. So what you're basically doing is you're requiring your residents at this point to go to, for example, Treasure Island or down into the Reddingtons to purchase their beer before they go out on the boat for the weekend or whatever on Sunday. And so what this gives you the opportunity to do is to change your internal ordinance to make it 8 a.m. so that your residents don't have to travel to do that. I'll tell you, there's only one city that I'm aware of that hasn't agreed already to do this, and that's Bel Air Bluffs. All the other cities that I'm working with are going through this process of adopting it back to 8 a.m. So it's basically a county-wide ability to purchase as early as 8 a.m.
Why does the packet say it's restaurant sales?
It's not, it shouldn't be on the agenda. It's for any sales.
Okay.
Okay.
I think one of the reasons that we changed it last time, Madam Mayor, is for the county sheriffs, so they could have a unified code and know that, you know, it's legal to sell alcohol at 8 o'clock or it's not. You know, for us in the beach communities or any community that, you know, obviously changes their law, it's difficult for them to keep up with it if we all have the Pinellas County Sheriff, that there's one standard and they know that alcohol sales can be done at 8 o'clock, or, you know, we have a community policing officer, he knows it can't start until 10 o'clock here in Madeira Beach now. But if we change that, then the other officers that drive through on a regular basis, they would know it's 8 o'clock.
Okay. So I think we can go forward. We all agree on that one?
And then, Madam Mayor, if that's something that we can get a consensus on, to keep it on the agenda is one issue, but to advise the city attorney and city manager to provide a referendum or ordinance in this case is what we need the direction on. So if we're kind of getting the thumbs up from you all today that we're comfortable with 8 o'clock, then we need to give direction to the city attorney to draft, in this case, Tom, I believe it'd be an ordinance, and it would need to be read twice with require a public hearing as well?
Yes, it would require 2 public hearings. It would be an ordinance reading.
So this isn't like something we can approve at the next meeting. There's some paperwork that we've got to do. So if that's be the case, then the direction we're looking for today is to advise the city attorney to prepare the ordinance for the discussion item on item number 8.
Then I respectfully ask you to put an ordinance together regarding this item.
I will do that. Thank you.
Next item is authorization of expenditures to Walker Ford in an amount not to exceed $31,986 for the purchase of a 2017 Ford Explorer per Florida Sheriff's Association and Florida Association of Counties bid.
Yes, Madam Mayor, if I can have the floor, and then the chief is in the audience tonight, and I've had some conversation with the city attorney, and I know again, transparency and following process is what we're here to do, but there are some times where government can act like any other business and get a good deal, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, you can avoid bidding something out, and avoid sounds negative, but you can get around the bidding process because there's things on a state bid that have already been bid out. So the state of Florida puts this, let's just call it a master sheet of things together that they've already bid out competitively. So they have been bid out. And then if a city such as Madera Beach goes on that list and says, hey, we need that item, we can bid that, we can buy that item because it's already been competitively bid. In this instance, there was an item on that sheet, and a local vendor said, I'll even do better than that. So we're going to piggyback off of that state sheet, and then, hey, we have somebody local that'll even, save us a couple more bucks and be a local vendor where we can get service done, and, if we have any problems with the piece of machinery and so forth. So that's the issue that you're discussing today. It's completely legal. It's okay per city process, and the chief is in the audience today if you want to ask any specific questions about the vehicle, why it's being replaced, so on and so forth.
I have a couple of questions.
I did not see that in the ordinance, that you can go around and not use the vendor that's on the contract. Otherwise, you have to bid the item out. It says in the ordinance that you have to do that.
In the actual ordinance, it's 2-193(3). It says, items with a cost in excess of $15,000 shall be competitively bid in accordance with section 2-182 of this article, except when prices are established by a state contract price list or another agency's bid process, semicolon, when the purchase is from sole source or due to an emergency situation, semicolon, or when the purchase is pursuant to the Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act. So that paragraph is basically telling you, so long as the price has been established by a state contract price list or by another agency's bid process, you can bypass the competitive bidding. That's directly from your code. So, and in this particular situation, it's my understanding is that not only did the city find the contract, either a state contract price or another agency's bid process price, but they actually did better than that by $3,000. So the options here would be to move forward and to purchase the vehicle and save the additional $3,000, or competitively bid it again and possibly pay more than the current contract price of the other state or the other agency. It's always an option for you, whatever you want to do. I think that what here is that they've been lucky enough to find someone close by that can even beat the state price, which according to your code, you can do that if you'd like to do that.
And Madam Mayor, I do need to save the city attorney. I was using $3,000 as an example when I was discussing with him. It's not $3,000. It's less than that, but it's a local vendor. But it's definitely less than what the state bid had dictated.
All right.
It was 3,000 less than the budgeted price that we had.
That's where the 3,000 came.
All right.
Well, my question is, first of all, what's the mileage on the vehicle, the current vehicle we have?
These vehicles are kind of like a trickle-down effect, so the vehicle that we're replacing is not actually going to be completely replaced. It will be given over to one of the other departments, so we will get rid of one of the other vehicles that has higher mileage and higher maintenance costs than the vehicle that we currently have.
And then what happens to the vehicle you're replacing?
That vehicle will go to one of the other departments for their use. It'll be a better vehicle. Our vehicle,
I mean, the one that this is replacing will go to another department.
Yes,
to
ma'am.
replace one of their vehicles.
Correct.
And what will happen to that vehicle?
That vehicle will be sold.
That will be sold.
Yes, ma'am.
And for how much, do we know?
I have no idea.
And what kind of condition I guess it's still in pretty good condition that?
The fire department vehicle has been well maintained. It's a vehicle that's got some age on it, so we've got some concerns about its reliability, but it will be serviceable for another department.
Well, I know from my own personal standpoint, I have a car that's 2004, I'm sorry, and has a little over 100,000 miles, and is in great shape, and I wouldn't need to buy a new vehicle. I just don't understand exactly why we do need to buy a new one.
Well, because of the reliability factor, where your vehicle may break down, but if we're responding to an emergency call in that vehicle, you don't want it to break down. So that's one of the issues. You know, the vehicle's not in bad shape. That's why it will be serviceable to another department, but we want to make sure that our emergency response vehicles are reliable.
Okay. And the other question was, why do we need a $3,800 upgrade on that?
It's basically a low-price state bid SUV. We're getting an incredible deal on it. It's a four-wheel drive vehicle. My preference for all vehicles that I've purchased since I've been with the city have been four-wheel drive vehicles because of high waters and we live on the beach. So it's a basic vehicle. It's no, Eddie Bauer edition, trust me.
Okay. Do we have a vehicle replacement process in place?
Yes, ma'am, we do.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners.
Thank you. So I guess we're good to go on that one. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, just so we're all clear, that would not be a resolution or an ordinance, that would just be an expenditure approval in excess of $15,000 for the purchase of a Ford Explorer for the fire department.
The next item is discussion of the Planning Commission vacancy.
Madam Mayor, just to alert everyone that Mr. David Lawrence, who served graciously, resigned right around the election time, and we have a vacancy. And so with that, just an FYI, I'd just like to be advised by the board to go through the proper channels to receive applications and fill the position.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Any discussion from the audience? All right. The next item is discussion on PACE proclamation. And my issue here is I was asked to give this proclamation when I was sworn in. I didn't know anything about the organization, so I was uncomfortable giving a proclamation to somebody that I don't know anything about. However, Hoosh, I believe you have some information on that.
Ms. Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Hoosh Kobahi. I live at 423 150th Avenue. I previously served on PACE board for 10 years, and I was a president for a 2-year term. And after 10 years, I had to basically be excused from the board. And a year passed. However, they asked me to join them again, and I did join the board, the PACE board. PACE is probably one of the most wonderful organizations I've ever worked with. It's an organization for girls between 11 and 18 that have been used and abused in so many ways, whether it's sexually, emotionally, physically. You just have to really get to know these young girls to truly appreciate the value that PACE brings to their lives. There are 19 centers across the state of Florida, and it's being modeled or being discussed to be modeled across the country. Having served on that board, I have learned so much, and I just have the greatest appreciation. And if you are interested, I would love to have a meeting set up with you and or an executive director with PACE so you can firsthand see the importance of PACE in the lives of these young girls. I've always said that if I had an opportunity to work and save a girl's life versus a young man's life, I would probably do a girl's life, because these young girls will become mothers, and these mothers will have 3 kids, and they'll teach them all the things that they know, whether they're good or bad. So now, when the proclamation was first discussed, it was a month thing. It was like a day thing. It was like a Girls' Day, I guess. Every year we have a Girls' Month or Girls' Day, and it was March. Of course, we had gone to Tallahassee also in March, and Governor Scott had given a proclamation as well to PACE. And I have a copy of it, took a photo of it, and I have put a lot of information on my Facebook if anybody's interested. So, but at this stage of the game, I would say it's probably past, it's what it's supposed to do. If we want to table it, you're welcome to, but it's really important to know what PACE does for these young girls and encourage them to do more. I'd be glad to answer any further questions.
I have no further questions.
Hoosh, did I catch that there was a certain month and it was March or April?
Yes.
I mean, Madam Mayor, this is a perfect example where you can say, if anybody's interested, we can table this and have staff tickle it for next February, and then we can workshop it again if that's something you want to see or have a presentation or anything like that. But that's completely at the will of the commission.
So if I understand what you're saying, that we can't give that proclamation right now.
Well, we can, if you give it, we can, I guess, look back and say, okay, March was the, I don't think that would make sense.
We're a little late in the game, but Madam Mayor, if you want us to, we can just, we can have the clerk tickle it for January or February of next year, and then we'll have it, at least brought up on a workshop.
All right, that seems reasonable. And part of the reason we didn't do it last time was because it was, the wording on it was incorrect.
Yes, I understand that.
Just want to make that clear.
Yes.
All right, then I would recommend then we table it until January.
I'm good with that.
Well, not to beat a dead horse, but we had it read in April, but really March needed to be the month that we designated. So it was just kind of a play on words. It wasn't necessarily worded incorrectly. We just were doing it a month later because of, the change.
Situations, yes.
Okay, thanks, Sush. Any comments from the audience? Okay, I think we're good with that. We'll table that until January. Next item is discussion on recruitment efforts on finance director position.
I think that needs to stay on. We'll discuss that at the meeting.
Madam Mayor, not to butt in, but I think today's the day that we discuss that, because it wouldn't really require a resolution or an ordinance or formal action. I just need some sort of consensus. My memo is in the packet. I'm happy to answer any questions, but in a state of Madeira Beach where the motion on the first night was to fire a department head, it certainly hasn't been easy to recruit a department head. I'm not saying that we don't. Just for example, there's a gentleman that works in the finance department. He and I have been trying to recruit just somebody to come in part-time to help us with the budget. And after the last meeting, he won't return our phone calls. He's no longer interested in doing it. And I know just leaving it out there makes sense, but reviewing applications, making phone calls, having conversations with people who don't want to even come in and interview because we're terminating employees and there's a lot of rumors and rhetoric on the streets, it's a futile exercise. We just did it again today. I need a finance director bad. I don't want to not hire a finance director, but some of the dust has to settle if we're going to get a qualified candidate. We're not the Madeira Beach of 2011. You're going to see state appropriations next on the agenda. We could be talking about almost another $1 million worth of state money coming in. We've got millions of dollars of grants coming in left and right. I mean, things have changed. I didn't need a state finance or a Florida municipal finance director at that time. In fact, when I got here, the board had hired a finance director that I had to terminate on my 4th day of work because he had no idea what he was doing. That wasn't an easy thing to do, nor was it easy to take a risk on Vince, but I had to, and then thank God that worked out. But we can't take a risk this time. We need to be able to recruit a finance director that is currently working as a finance director in another city in the state of Florida. And until some of this dust settles and we get on board with who the employees are going to be, we're not going to get that applicant. This applicant for this position wants to know who he's gonna come to work for every single day, and until we solidify that, it's a worthless exercise.
I respectfully disagree. You say in several emails here, we need a good qualified applicant, and we have some, but no one is interested in interviewing. And you also say the applicants that have been finance directors in Florida are no longer interested in interviewing. I got all the applications, and for the finance director, I called most of them. 11 of them said nobody's ever contacted them. 11 of those 11, they all said they were interested in being contacted and interviewing. And of those, 3 of them are finance directors in Florida. 1 is a finance director in Tennessee, and another one is a finance director who, because we didn't bother interviewing him, already found another job. So my suggestion would be to take the applications that we have and call them, go through them, and repost it. Any comments from the?
Can we get a copy of the ones that you have? I received one from a gentleman that gave us one last week.
Yes.
Was that a qualified candidate?
I believe so. He's here. Let him tell you.
I believe he's
tell us if-
qualified. He's not a finance manager, right, a director, but he does seem qualified. He lives in Madeira Beach and is ready and willing to work.
Well, again, I know we hired a financial director that Shane fired. You and I did. So I've been through that road too. So I think until we find out who's going to be the boss here, it's just really not going to behoove us to try to find a finance director. It's just.
I think we need to get somebody, even if we put somebody in as an interim.
Again,
We need
as
to
long as they're
have someone
qualified,
there.
I'm good. I mean, there's a ton of people out there that'll take a $90,000 job. There's a ton of people, but they're not all qualified. That's the problem.
Well, we've got at least 3 in here who are qualified. They're finance directors in Florida. And many others who have good experience and could learn just like Vince did. But nobody's talking to them. Nobody has called them.
So now we're saying that years of service and experience is important to the qualifications for a different department head's job. Is that what I'm getting?
I didn't say that. I believe you're the one who said it needed to be someone from Florida and someone who was already a finance director. I'm saying some of these people don't have the experience you're looking for, but are qualified.
Like I said, going back to a previous conversation about terminating a previous employee, now we're saying years of service and experience is okay and just as important as qualifications. We're being contradictory here, people. We're running a $25 million company. You can't talk out of both sides of your mouth. You got to tell me what side we're on, and that's the way we're going to go. You guys set policy. I'm the robot that gets it done. But we can't go both ways. So I need to know which way we're going.
I'm saying we need to interview these people. We're not talking about another position, whether or not remains, here. We're talking about this position, which needs to be filled immediately.
Again, Madam Mayor, I filled the financial director's position. I didn't vote for him, so I didn't do it. But the commission that I was on at the time filled the financial director's position, and he was not qualified. I don't want to make the same mistake again. I don't want to do that.
Okay, I'm just saying, my biggest problem is we have applicants that have not been contacted. Qualified, not qualified, none of them have been spoken to.
Again, we don't have an HR department, so I'm assuming
Well,
that.
we did.
Yes, we did, before the previous commission fired her.
I think someone could take on that role right now.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, can we get a copy of the ones that you have?
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Any more discussion?
Philippe at 399 150th Avenue. Just got a question on the candidates you reviewed. Do any of them that you say have background, do they have the certification in finance also?
I didn't look that close at the application to see if they had certification.
Okay, well, if it's good for one, it should be good for the other. That's all I got to say.
Anyone else?
My name is Russell Smayback. I'm a Madeira Beach resident at 15473 Gulf Boulevard. I've worked as a certified public accountant, certified internal auditor, certified fraud examiner. I have a bachelor's degree in accounting, a master's in business administration, over 40 years of experience in all levels of accounting, including the last 9 years as the head of administration of finance and administration, which is similar to the director of finance administration, for the ALMA Observatory, an $80 million government organization funded by the National Science Foundation of the United States. I applied for the position of finance director for Madeira Beach, and I'm willing and able to start immediately. I'm currently not employed, so I'm able to start immediately. Not worried about if it's an interim assignment or not an interim assignment. If I only work for 2 months, that's fine with me. While you're looking for another candidate, I've done budgets all my life, including the last 9 years doing $80 million budgets every year for the government. With this position not filled and the workload that the city manager has said that needs to be done, I don't see why or how you can wait another 60 or 90 days to hire somebody for this position, or wait maybe to hire the permanent position, but in the interim you need somebody. And I feel that I'm qualified, immediately available, and ready to go to work for the government. And I'd like to be considered for the position, or at least interviewed. Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, my recommendation is that we at least, I'm not sure how to do this, but find somebody who can interview some of these candidates and go forward from there.
Section 6.4 of your city charters reads as follows. The Director of Finance shall be appointed by the city manager, subject to the Board of Commissioners' approval. If anyone's going to interview or hire a finance director or put them in front of you for approval, it will be the city manager. I am happy to take applications. I'm happy to keep this process going, but I am telling you that I have talked to 20-some planning and zoning directors. I've talked to finance directors, and the question is, when will the chaos end, and when will we know who we're working for? We're not going to get any qualified applicants, and I'm sorry, I've got a lot of work to do, and I can't spend my day on the phone trying to convince people that everything's okay in Madeira Beach. They read the newspaper. I'm not saying we have to wait forever. You guys said you didn't have a city manager for 2 years. We didn't have a finance director for a while. We will get through it. I will put a plan together. We will get through this on an interim basis. This gentleman might be the guy that I interview, and we can do something interimly, but everything is hitting the press. There is no reason in the world somebody's going to leave a job where they're happy or their boss is happy with them to come here after reading about, we're still talking about firing an employee who's worked here for 23 years and is more than capable of doing her job. It's going to happen again.
Well, if it's up to you to do the interviewing, I suggest that you interview the people who said yes, they would like to be interviewed. They're not scared.
I'd like
as well as Mr. Smeeback.
I would like a consensus of the board, and I will be happy to do that. And in the meantime, I'm just telling you that there's plenty of people that aren't afraid to come in and interview, but they want to know who they're going to be working for in 6 months. And we have not done a good job of displaying who's going to be running the show in 6 months. Last meeting, it was asked of you guys whether or not you're going to fire me, with no response. So if the consensus of the board is for me to re-advertise, I will do what I'm told to do. It's just going to be a very, very time-consuming and difficult task to get a very good applicant at this point in time.
My suggestion is to interview the people who we have, and if they don't work out, then we can advertise after that.
I'll be happy to do that with the consensus of the board.
I agree.
Terry, Nancy?
There might be a lot of good applicants out there, but like Shane was saying, or excuse me, Mr. City Manager was saying, that, knowing that they're coming into an unstable environment, what are the chances? And as far as interim, working 2 months, who wants to work for just 2 months? 2 months and then you're out of a job again.
That's fine.
Then you're starting over again.
Yes, if we want to have this conversation, sir, what have you been doing for employment for the last 13 months? Right, okay. So, yes, so we have a very eager candidate that has not been employed for 13 months. I need somebody that I don't have to train, I don't have to walk through, that has put a budget together in the state of Florida before. And this is not it. I'm responsible for getting that budget in front of you on July 1st, and if I don't do it in the right fashion, I'm on the chopping block again, of which I think I am anyway. And so does every applicant that applied for this job.
How would you know that if you haven't talked to them?
I have spoken to some of them, and I've spoken
Who
to
have you spoken to?
Madam Mayor, if you want to, for the third time, come meet with me after this meeting, I'll be happy to explain to you the ones that I've talked to and the ones that I haven't talked to, and I can show you a stack of planning and zoning directors and I've had numerous phone conversations with who are no longer interested in talking to me because of this type of conversation back and forth. No one wants to go into a chaotic position. They want to see solidarity. They want to see unitedness. They want to see who they're going to come to work for in 3 months.
I'm not suggesting Mr. Spivak is the man, but he is willing. And as I said, the other candidates I've spoken to are willing to interview. They're not afraid to interview. So,
Again, Madam Mayor, not to interrupt, but I think there's a ton of people who want a $90,000 job. A ton of people. I'm sure there's half the people out here would work for $90,000. It's just, they're not going to work for Shane Crawford because his bar's up here. And I'm not sure if he can't find that. We certainly can't. We don't know. So, Madam Mayor, unless you're going to, do the interviews yourself, our charter says he has to do the interviews. And he's not going to hire anybody until you tell him that his future's secure. That's the elephant in the room that's been not talked about. So until we get that out of the way at this next meeting, we're just going to not be able to hire a financial director. It's not going to happen.
the people who are applying for this job know nothing about.
I don't agree with you, Madam Mayor. They certainly know so much about it. It's in the papers on a daily basis.
They know what's going on in the city of Madeira Beach.
Yes, ma'am.
But they don't know anything about Mr. Crawford's pending employment or not. And neither do we. That's not on the table right now, what we're talking about.
I think it needs to be on the table, it needs to be addressed, and then we'll move forward with the position.
Madam Mayor, I will be happy to start advertising, getting applications, but I will never, ever hire the best of the worst. And this gentleman in the audience, he may be very qualified, he may not be, but I don't have time to train. We're in a very volatile spot right now, and it was bad timing on Vince's departure. I will certainly do my best to recruit a good candidate and continue the process. I'll review the applications, but I'm not just going to interview 5 people and then take the best of the 5. That's not how we've done it.
And that's not what I'm asking you to do. I'm just asking you to interview them. We have what appear to be qualified finance directors who actually live and work in Florida.
Yes, and those people are going to have to quit their jobs, sell their homes.
That's their decision. That's not up to you.
I understand that, but they want to know who they're going to work for in 6 months. And I'm not trying to, give me a vote of confidence, because that doesn't mean anything. We need to show them that, yes, these are the people that are gonna be in line for the next year or 2 or 3. No one wants to take a job who doesn't know.
You're making that decision for them. Let them make that decision.
I'm not making that decision for them. I've talked to 20 applicants from the planning and zoning world that have said the exact same thing. In 3 months, Mr. Crawford, will you be there? And I can't say yes. I can't.
Well, that's fine. We're not talking about that position. We're talking about the finance position, and it's
the
being
exact same
ignored.
thing. It'll go exactly the same way. Exactly the same way.
I've talked to these people. I think you need to talk to them, and that's not going to change.
I'll be happy to speak to them, but again, if somebody called me and said, are you interested in a $90,000 a year job, without any of the specifics or any of the facts or any of the politics, I think my answer would be yes as well. So I'll be happy to. I'll spend all day tomorrow. I'll contact every applicant and walk through the recruitment file.
Okay, any other comments? Comments from the audience? All right. Next item is pump-out boats. Do we have a business case for this pump-out boat?
No, ma'am.
Shouldn't we?
It's not what we were asked to do when Commissioner Poe asked us to apply for the grant. We were going to do it in-house with existing personnel. You have a report on your desk about polluted water. This was not the one-all fix, but this was certainly a step in the right direction. This was not what staff recommended. We were told to apply for this grant, and frankly, it's just more work for staff. So when you get the complaints that there's human waste washing up on the riprap of people's docks or close to their docks, this was going to be an answer saying, well, if we know the boat, we can contact them, go to pump them out, do whatever. There's a lot of people, there's more human waste in the garbage can at McDonald's off the dock than there is in the bathroom, because they go in bags and drop it off there, where if we had something like this, we could handle that. We don't need more work. A boat is just one more thing to maintain, it's one more thing to staff, and it's a function that we don't have enough staff for. So if somebody thinks that this was a recreational boat that we were just gonna be goofing around on all day, I suggest that we contact the grant company and say we're no longer interested and figure out another way to clean up our waterways.
Well, I think we really need to have a business case for this. I'd like to know what it's actually going to cost us.
Excuse me.
And what the revenue would be.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor.
Oh,
Dave
there.
Marsicano, Public Works Director and Marina Manager. I would just like to say this, that the business plan for this has not been put together yet. 2 municipalities, us and the city of Gulfport, both have applied and been rewarded these particular grants from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. We were awarded this grant, and we applied for this grant, Madam Mayor, in order to help to clean the waters of Boca Ciega Bay, which is an aquatic preserve out here that my children recreate in, that hopefully my grandchildren, your children all recreate in. And this was another way of municipality, us, the city of Madeira Beach, trying to help not only the city of Madeira Beach, our surrounding communities. There's several grants that are available ongoing to include staff time and maintenance of this boat. Now, ma'am, I am not interested in a lot more work, and this is a lot more work. With all of our grants that we receive, there is years of documentation, information. For example, Boca Ciega Bay paving project with the stormwater the stormwater grant that we just got. I have 18 months of documentation of the waste that comes out of the storm boxes that have to go to FDEP. And this is the same thing with a pump out boat. This was put before you in an effort to help all of our communities in Pinellas County improve boating quality, to improve water quality, not to make money. I would hope, and I would like to present to you that I would think we would at some times like to do the right thing for our community and not look at it strictly as a business proposition. With that being said, if you would like us to pull this grant, I will be happy to send Jessica Chewy, who is our FDEP contact in Tallahassee, and inform her that we will not be accepting this grant. The city of Gulfport is going to do it, and they're going to do a really good job at it. Dennis is flying up to Newport to spec the boat. We sent him up there to do that. That was something that we could have both done together, but Dennis is a very qualified 30-year marina manager who is going to be speccing the boat for the city of Gulfport, who also believes if they give their fellow boaters that are living aboard these vessels in this Boca Ciega Bay, which is an aquatic preserve, if we give them the ability to do the right thing, maybe they will do the right thing. And there's going to be a cost associated to it. This isn't something we're going to do for free. But with that being said, if this is something the new commission is not interested in doing or not being a part of, I respectfully request they pull it off now.
Any other comments from the board?
I'd like to keep it on, Madam Mayor.
The only thing that bothers me about keeping it on is the fact that we don't know what it's going to cost us. I don't mind necessarily doing something for charity, but I'd like to know.
Madam, it's not charity.
I know that the grant was a 75%, was it? 75% grant?
Yes, sir, it was 75%. And there's absolutely a cost to it. But there's going to be fees for this also. It's not a charity.
Well, maybe I misspoke.
Trying to do here. This is something that we are moving forward with for the good of all communities and the public at large.
I've heard that the max dollars that they can charge is $5 per pump out.
Right.
I don't believe that's true, and if you did hear it, I'd love to know where you heard it from. So when we get the facts, we can state the facts.
Well, that's what I'd like. I'm here to try to get the facts.
Well, again, Madam Mayor, we've had this ball rolling for several years. This didn't started when you were elected. We've been trying to get this pump out boat for several years. I've been to the Gulfport Marina, and I've been an advocate for this pump out boat for a long time because we do need to keep our waterways clean. We have our water tested here around Madeira Beach at our expense, just because we don't want to be called up by the state and said, you know, your beach is closed. It's really bad publicity.
If I could point out, excuse me, if I could point out one more thing on the sampling from Southern Analytical. Hillsborough County and Pinellas County closed down our beaches at 100 parts per milliliter. And if you look at all the results, you'll see that there's some that are over 2,000. So there's a problem. But like I said, Gulfport's doing it if y'all would like to pull it off.
Well, the other item, or the other thing that I was told is that they don't have to do it. They don't have to, they're not required to do the pump out.
No, ma'am, no one's required. But if you give somebody the opportunity to do the right thing, we can only hope they will.
Right.
And you know, we have a pump out station at the marina. They can come to our marina and do a pump out. Absolutely.
A lot of people are too lazy to do that.
They can, but a lot of people, if they're offered that opportunity at their position without having to unanchor or whatever, they would take advantage of that. So I really think it would behoove us to keep our waters clean. And at a 75%, 25% split, it's a win for us.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Marsicano, when do we have to make the expenditure to get the boat before we would forfeit the grant? I know
We have,
time is of the essence.
we have several years, 3 years, and it's 3 years on the grant. And I have to get back to Jessica tomorrow. DEP's waiting to hear which way this goes.
So either, Madam Mayor, I would suggest from a staff standpoint that you workshop this item again, or from a consensus standpoint, we're not interested, or from a consensus standpoint, on the next agenda that you would appropriate the money that's in the budget to pay for the 25% of the pump-out boat.
Robin Vandervelde and I live in Bay Pines, and I will,
Your address, please?
I live on 51st Avenue. I don't know how many of those boats that are in the bay over there are actually.
Excuse me, Robin, no one can hear you. You have to speak closer into the mic.
I don't know how many of those boats are actually liveaboards. A lot of those boats are abandoned. Some of them are for sale. But you've got other problems that a pump-out boat is not going to solve. And I'm not against the pump-out boat. If you remember, I was for a pump-out boat. I think it's a good idea. I'd pay somebody to come to my boat and pump out rather than go over to the marina and do it. That's fine. But you've got the people who collect at the sandbar. They bring their dogs, their children, their babies over there by the hundreds every weekend. And you've also got the county that's dumping raw sewage into Boca Ciega Bay. And if you're going to address the people who live on those boats over there, maybe a dozen boats, that's not where the bulk of your E. coli is coming from. It's coming from other sources, and I'd like to see you address those other sources as well.
June Mons, 13321 Boca Ciega Avenue here in Madeira Beach. My viewpoint's along the same line, and I'm astonished that it's making Dave so mad to question this. I think the problem with our water is way beyond what one little pump-out boat's going to do. We have a pump-out facility at the marina, and this boat has got to be painted, staffed, gas put into it, and I think we can charge like $15 for a pump-out maximum. I think that's what the grant said, because I saw something about it online when it came up. So it's not like we're going to ever break even on this. And I think if St. Pete Beach would quit dumping sewage like crazy, and the county, and we really, I would like to see us talk to them and ask them to please quit dumping sewage in our waterways. They're doing a project in my neighborhood to clear up Boca Ciega Bay, and they're putting in filters, which should make improvement. But with all due respect, I suspect this is like just going to address a small, eensy-weensy part of the problem, and that there are ways we maybe could do it more effectively without having to do more, you having more responsibility and work. So that's my thought.
John Leap of 399 150th. I'm not cognizant enough about the details of this pump-out boat, whether it's needed or not, but I can attest to the fact that frequently along our shoreline at 399 150th, I pick up or try to pick up diapers, sewage. You can't believe what comes off those boats in there. So I would say anything that would help those boaters to make it easy for them to get rid of that stuff. Because, it's just like drive-up windows at McDonald's. People don't want to get out of their cars. People don't want to drive to marinas with their boats. If you can bring the porta potty to them, maybe they'll take care of their problem, as Dave says. Thank you.
Robin Pulaski, 131st Ave, and I live on a marina, and upon moving here, got great response from code enforcement, because the marina I live on has no pump-out stations, and people are living on boats, not disposing of their waste, leaving. We caught people. So I think even some stiffer laws requiring marinas, I don't know if there's a size or something, maybe we need to look at something so people can't do that.
Just two comments. One, back to that, the marina I think you're talking about does have a pump out now. So they're back. And there are a couple marinas in town with liveaboards that have permits in for pump outs now. So that is. And I'm not upset about this. I'm very passionate about it because my children are in that water.
Madam Mayor, it was also budgeted for. We budgeted for the 25%. It's already in the budget.
This has been budgeted for 2 years.
Yeah.
We received a grant this year. Once again, if this isn't something that we wish to do, we can just pull it off. It's fine. We don't have to have a pump out pump.
Mark Merrill, it's certainly a worthy cause, and it's hard to really debate against it. The only thing is, I live on the end of Crystal Drive, and I live at the very end where I look out in the intercoastal. And the boats that, a lot of them, I have no statistics, but the boats that come by me on the intercoastal, every once in a while, they empty their holding tanks. And they're on the move because that stuff comes right up at us. So I guess the question is really how much good are we going to do? Plus, I think the mayor asked a legitimate question. I want to know the total cost, which we really haven't heard. I mean, it's open-ended. We do have a pump-out station, which is well advertised to the boaters that go by, right? But there is a question of what is the cost and how effective would it be, especially when I see hundreds of boats going by my house, and I've had that house for 40 years, so I've had a little experience in seeing what happens. Thank you.
Bill Mons, 13321 Boca Ciega Avenue, Madeira Beach.
Get real close.
Dave clearly has strong feelings on this, and I think that's good. What I'd like to wonder is, or maybe ask, does the grant program have a methodology for monitoring how good you're doing it? I mean, is there?
I believe I commented on that, Mr. Mons. All of our grants have monitoring. We have to report to DEP on the grant, on the pump out that's at the marina. I try to keep track. We leave the pump out at the marina open 24 hours. So anybody can do it. But we keep track during the day who comes there, and we report it to FDEP. Same thing with a boat. Anything. Same thing with the roads. Anytime that we receive grant money, there's monitoring, there's something attached to that afterwards, ongoing, continuously.
Okay. I wasn't clear, I'm sorry. What I thought, I know that you got to spend the money correctly. I realized that. What I didn't know if there was a technical.
Yes.
Do they measure the gallons?
Yes. Yes. That's what I was answering. They get a gallon amount from us.
So there is a way to.
Annually, I think.
So there is a way downstream, bad analogy. There is a way over years for the commission to decide, is this program really worth the effort?
And FDP, yes, absolutely. And FDEP's been doing that since the program.
So the commission
existed.
could, a year from now, 2 years, whatever, back out of the program if it just wasn't working or making any difference?
I don't know the exact contract terms.
Okay.
If I can't comment on that.
But we're not locked into it forever. Presumably not. No. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, for me, it still comes down to, I would like to know the costs better before we make a decision.
The cost, let me understand what you're asking for, Madam Mayor. The cost of the operation of the boat ongoing? or the cost of the boat?
Both.
Okay, well, the cost of the boat, I believe, was given to you in your packet, which was $112,000, I believe, with the trailer. I think it's also important to realize that the pump-out boat, along with using it for sewage, we also maintain all of our no-wake signs now and all of our swim buoys. So that is something that we could use that boat also for. Right now, we contract that work out. So just having the boat is a savings. Forget about the other. But I'll put together a business plan for you
That'd be
so
great,
you
'cause
feel better about it.
It's all about data, and if we know all those numbers, then it's a lot easier.
Right.
To make a decision. Any other comments? So I think we need to wait until we get the data and then make a decision.
Can we have the data by the next meeting? Do you want to leave it on the agenda, is what I'm asking?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. That's all I need to know.
The grant's already been executed with the state, okay? Let's be clear about that.
Right.
The prior commission already accepted the pump-out boat.
Right.
So we have a contract with FDEP currently, which you should have been in your packet. So I need to know to report to Jessica.
Which again is why I don't think you're ready to take action at the next BOC meeting, Madam Mayor, so you may want to consider a special Board of Commissioners meeting where Dave needs 30 days to put a business plan together. He's a busy man, and so we can maybe ask for an extension, Dave, get them the information that they need, and put it on the workshop in May. And if you like what you see, you adopt it in June, or if you don't like what you see, you shoot it down in June at the BOC meeting.
I'd be good with that.
Madam Clerk, if you can mark that one then for the workshop in May, please.
Any more discussion before we go forward? Next item is state appropriation requests.
Madam Mayor, this can be brief. There's a memo in your packet in regards to the two requests that the previous commission had asked me to make from the state of Florida in terms of state appropriations. We had never made this request before, and we had some significant luck last year getting some much-needed dollars for a lighting project in Johns Pass. So we asked for $500,000. If you look outside and you look at the ball diamond lights, those ball diamond lights are retrofitted but old, and they are not the easiest to control in terms of light pollution or beaming of light. I believe they're probably 1950s vintage. We do get complaints from people across the waterways, even within our own town, saying, you know, the light is coming in my living room or in my kitchen. People along Harbor Drive as well. So we viewed that as, at least the commission viewed that as an issue on the city center, because that's one of the few things that were not addressed in the budget. That appropriation that is headed up by Senator Brandis was reduced to $200,000, which still makes the project possible, but may require a small amount of city money to make that happen. My rec director, Doug Andrews, is in the audience. He is currently getting numbers on whether or not that can work. And when I get a better budget from him, I can go back to the state and hopefully either ask for more or let them know that that appropriation will work. The other appropriation that we've asked for was $1 million to improve our beach groins in regards to public safety. I know Dave just left the room probably to use the restroom, but our groin system, regardless of whether or not you want to believe it or not, those are those big ugly things that jet out from the beach on Madeira Beach, but they're effective, they work, and they gain us beach, especially every storm. When you'll hear your fellow commission members or mayors in other cities say, oh my goodness, we lost so much beach. Well, they lost it and you got it. So the problem is that they're not safe. And children like to walk out on them like they're fishing piers. Even adults like to walk out on them like they're, some sort of way to get into the water. and they're not easily fixed, and so it's gonna cost a lot of money to start doing that. I would expect that request would be reduced, although, excuse me, these types of natural resource projects, if you will, have been what do I want to say? It's been dictated by the state that these are going to be important projects in this year's budget, so we might get lucky. So this is just an FYI, but again, just kind of like the pump-out vote, if we're not interested in taking the money, or if we know, on a $200,000 lighting project, we might have to put $25,000 towards it, I need to know now, because then we're going to cheat out our fellow cities and municipalities out of money that we're going to get appropriated that the state won't dish out. So that's just an FYI. If everybody's kind of got a consensus that that's okay, this is probably 10 months in the working. As soon as the state budget comes out, our lobbyist begins working on appropriations for the next fiscal year with the state. So then we'll have that conversation with y'all and decide what we want to ask for at that point, if there's anything that we do want to ask for.
I have a question about the lobbyist. What does that cost us?
I wish Vince was here. I believe we pay him, the invoice I pay is $4,000 a month, but I believe we only pay it in session. I don't have my budget in front of me, but Madam Mayor, I'll be happy to email you that answer, and I can email it to the entire commission, but it's an annual payment split up amongst the number of months that we are in session. But I want to say last year, Dave, if you can help me out, the lighting project, I think we got a $400,000 or $600,000 state appropriation, $400,000, and I believe the city spent about $40,000 on the lobbyist to secure that. So I can just remember myself saying the return that we got on our lobbyist was pretty substantial, and that board at that time told us to continue on. But that's something that you'll be able to address in this coming budget if you want.
So it's worthwhile having the lobbyist then, I say.
Well, it certainly was last year.
Right.
This year, like I said, if he can show us $500,000 on a $40,000 investment, that's pretty good. So we'll see what we get. But again, you have to be able to buy into the projects. You got to say, yeah, that lighting is A, outdated, and B, we want to be able to control the light and still be able to maintain tournaments and make sure that our population doesn't view the fact that one light might have gone astray in a windstorm and now is shining in my kitchen at 6 in the morning, that kind of thing. 6 in the morning is a bad call because it wouldn't be on at 6 in the morning, but you understand what I'm saying.
Any questions, comments? Anybody?
I guess the only other thing, Madam Mayor, that I can say is it's too late in the game to change projects on this year, but next year, the gamut is wide open.
Right. All right. Next item is a discussion on extending the Wednesday beach market on Madeira Way. I believe that's for next year. Is that correct?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, Doug Andrews is in the audience, and I want to call him to the podium. This has been one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't type things. When I was recruited, there was a mention, Crawford, if you don't do anything, get some events going in Madeira Beach. And so we started this market. There was mixed emotions on whether or not it's okay. We have some friends in Reddington that don't like the fact that Madeira Way is shut down. I think we've addressed the traffic issue. FDOT finally, after a year and a half, cooperated with the left-hand turn from from Gulf Boulevard onto 150th. But there's also mixed emotion by the business owners on Madeira Way as to whether or not it helps them or hurts them. And really, there was only two, for lack of a better term, ringleaders that thought that it hurt their business. And those vendors are no longer there. And so after hearing from the group, and I believe the gal that puts on the market is in the audience tonight, the business owners on Madeira Way appreciate this because it brings additional business into their city into their business. And I've had some relatively difficult conversations with them because I said, if you're depending on a city event to cash flow your business plan was incorrect. You need to be able to do that yourself, not depend on the city to do that. But it's become a popular little niche here in Madeira Beach. And, if I had to say everybody along Madeira Way probably appreciates that, that might be about 80 to 90% correct. But certainly the majority, and Doug's got a much better taste of that than we do. But I know you politicians here it's A, it's a waste of time, or B, there's not enough there, or the Reddingtons are upset about the traffic flow, or there's not enough time to get turned left onto 150th. So we wanted to discuss the merits with you and decide then whether or not you want to continue because their contract is up, and this is the time to have these conversations. So with that, I'll hand the floor over to Mr. Andrews.
I'm not sure there's anything else left to say.
Sorry, my man.
Perfect, you did great. No. Yeah, I believe Shane's correct. I mean, I think the merchants that are now on Madeira Way are overwhelmingly in favor of it. Whereas before, he's right, there was a little dissension amongst the troops, but now it seems to be good. I think the residents, they seem to either like it or indifferent to it. They don't even know it's there. But there are some people that don't like the traffic patterns, and that's really all you got to really decide against now. It's there, I believe, and Laura will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we did approve it through May this year, but I believe you guys are stopping after tomorrow? Okay, so tomorrow's the last day that's on the contract. So after that, you guys are planning to restart, say, October-ish? There we go, October-ish. So we don't even have a permit in front of me. The main reason why we're talking about it today is they have to go for an agricultural permit, and I need to get them approval in order for them to do that, and that takes a little bit of time to get done.
Do we have any costs for it costs the city to have?
Yeah, I mean, that was obviously part two of this. We don't have anything in my ordinance book that says, okay, if you shut down Madeira Way, it costs you $10,000 or $100. Nobody knows, or nobody's even come up with a cost of what it could be. It's minimal staff time. We give them some cones to block off the road. Maybe a little electric, a little water. I don't even know if they use that at the time, but I don't think there's really any major cost to the city, besides maybe taking a few phone calls from somebody from Reddington that's angry that the cut-through is not there.
Someone told me, I think, that there is some staff that's there all day long.
None of my staff is there, no.
Okay.
No.
Well, with that being said, though, I don't want to say the word babysit it, but we make sure that it's functioning appropriately, especially when it comes to the barricades and things of that sort. I would estimate if you added it all up together, it might take an hour, maybe hour and a half of total staff time to make sure that we've got Madeira Way by the Brown Boxer down, and then Madeira Way over by Municipal Drive broken down by what time? 7:30 in the morning, maybe, Laura? Is it 7:30, 8 o'clock? And they handle most of that. We just make sure that they've got, the truck with the cones in it and that type of stuff. So when it comes to staff time, we're just making sure, just like we would for any event here, that everything's flowing and everything's okay. So
Well, as you probably know, I'm all about data. So even if it's a small amount, it would be good to know. I'm not saying we should stop the market at all. That's not the issue.
Sure.
It'd be just nice to know what it does cost us, because then it's easy to say,
Okay.
it's a great thing to have, and this is what it costs, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it's going to be an electric cost on Madeira Way is going to be impossible for me to. You wouldn't have a way to figure something like that out, would you? No. It'd be impossible to figure out what that would be. And honestly, I can't think of any hard costs that we'd incur, other than, like I said, the dropping off of and these guys have been doing it long enough. They actually close down the road themselves. Now, if you want to assess a per day fee to it, that's fine. They pay their permit fee in the beginning of the year. So they're in accordance with everything that we're doing. Just up to you guys whether or not you wanted to change that going forward.
The other thing is, I've spoken to 2 people on Madeira Way, and they are definitely not for the market, and it takes away from their business. I haven't done a survey, but it'd be nice to do a survey.
Sure. Sure.
It says here that they're overwhelmingly support it, and that may be true, but I don't know if we have that data either.
Okay. Yep. I can just go by word of mouth too. I did not, conduct a proper survey. You're correct.
Okay. Anybody else? Any questions?
No. Thanks, Doug.
Good. Okay.
Thanks, Doug.
So what are we going to do with this item? Refer it to the.
Wait. We have. Oh, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Commissioners. I'm Bill Carnes. Let's use 150th Avenue as an address. I think, as you all know,
Is that where you live?
No, that's my.
You need your home address.
Oh, it's 19424 Gulf Boulevard in Indian Shores, thank you. Soon to be Madeira Beach. So I own all the properties on the south side of Madeira Way and see my tenants there on a daily basis. I've been at every Wednesday market. On the south side of Madeira Way, own about 30% of the businesses, the properties there, and of course everything up 150th Avenue. Every one of my tenants that are in there enjoy the market. It brings business to their businesses. Many of them, it's their best day of the week. I can tell you that they set up at a reasonable time. They knock down promptly 2 o'clock. I see many of the residents, talk to many residents that they're to support the market. And I think it's a wonderful community market. And we'd certainly like to keep it going, not only pre-development, but post-development in a different fashion. It wouldn't cause the closure of Madeira Way. Does it cause some traffic? I'm up and down 150th numerous times. Can it be challenging to make a left-hand turn going west on 150th onto Gulf Boulevard? You know, a lot of folks don't know there's 2 left turn lanes there, so the one side's obviously, and you've lived there, you know, you stay to the right and you're going to turn faster, but does it create some traffic? A little bit, but I think the benefits to the community are far outweighed. I don't know if there were any of my residents that you had spoke with, but
I did.
yeah, everyone that's
Ron's lady said, I spoke with the owner, and he said they do absolutely almost no business on that day.
okay.
And again, I'm not saying
Yep.
that we should close, and not have it. I'm just,
And
we need to be
it's
factual.
funny, as I speak with them frequently, as they are my tenant there, never heard a complaint about it. And in reality, they're the least affected because everyone can get into that parking lot. So going even up further, Stitches and more, she's great lady, keeps her notepad every day. You can look and see her sales on Wednesday are triple. And sorry, I used up my whole amount of time. Thank you.
I'm Laura Garrison. I live in St. Petersburg, 1750 16th Street South. I am the Beach Markets manager, have been for 4 seasons now. I want to address the Bronze Lady. I really do, because I haven't heard what apparently you've heard. We unload their trucks for them every Wednesday. And I've heard that they've done a ton of business because we're there. I don't get paid very much at all for running that market. I run it more like a congregation. We give booths to the city, the fire department, the library. It's a community event, and that's what we want it to be. We've got some of the folks from Madeira Way here today. I love that market. I love this community. I don't live here, but I'd love to. So I want to continue, but my part of this takes months in advance. We've got an A+ rating at the state. It's not an easy job. We pay for everything. We are a self-funded market, and we don't have sponsorship. I thought we would by now, but we don't. I can't get grants until we have permanency on certain things, so we're kind of stuck. And I'll tell you, my best and highest use of time is not running that market on some days. So let's just say that I'm very happy to continue forward. I just need a little support, and that means getting a new permit for this next season. I mean, again, we do it all. We close the street, we bring everything back. We do use the cone truck, but we put it back like it is. But we pay for everything else. So thank you for your time.
Good afternoon. My name is Barbara Jones, and I live at 14028 West Parsley Drive. And I have the store on Madeira Way called Mad Beach Pickers at 15008 Madeira Way. And I personally have not been surveyed about how I feel about the market, and I don't know anyone that has. And I'm not going to say that it's a sword that I'm going to live and die by, but I've been in that location for, by the grace of God, for 5 years. And we, as small business owners, have tried to do everything in our power to build that environment, you know, for the community, for us. We want to be prosperous. We want to be profitable. And I know that Wednesday is not going to make or break me. But there are so many people that stop in on Wednesday and say, if I, you know, couldn't get through because of the traffic, or hey, I saw this was here, and that's the only reason that I'm stopping. And now that I'm here and I see that you're open, I'm going to come back. I'm going to be a good customer. Because usually this is just a cut through, and we just drive through here from A to B to Winn-Dixie or whatever, and don't even look. And you know, we have a limited advertising budget, and I know Laura works really hard, and Mr. Carnes has been a great support to us, and we really want to keep the market, and we want to go forward with it.
Hello. My name is Joanne Hampton, 7360 Ulmerton Road, Largo. I am a vendor at the market. I do massage therapy there. And I think you should know that the massage is a destination for some people. Myself and several other vendors have followings of people who come to Madeira Beach to come to the market. I have people get in my chair that were there last year, and they tell me, I couldn't wait to come back to Madeira Beach to get another massage from you. I know the Olive Guy has the same kind of following. One woman from, one woman from Minnesota actually told me that when they were making their vacation plans, she told her husband, we have to go back to Madeira Beach. I have to get another massage. So I thought you should know that we are a destination. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'd just like to piggyback on that. You know, we're a service city. That's what we do. We provide services. And so we're not in the business to make money on everything. So sometimes you have to just think about services you're providing, not only to the citizens of Madeira Beach, but to other people that come into our city. And the north side of town, we've always tried to have something up here on the north side of town to get it to sort of balance with Johns Pass, because that being my district, Johns Pass has always had a draw. So it's nice to have something on the north end to sort of balance it off. And I appreciate all the hard work that you guys do up here.
Any more comments from the commissioners? I think do we have a consensus that we will extend the market then? Okay. Discussion on forming a staff citizen committee to gather information on renewable energy.
Madam Mayor, I think I'd like to reintroduce Doug Andrews. This was an issue brought up by one of our more passionate citizens, Steve Kochek, in regards to the construction of the city center, where certain things just weren't in the budget at that time and had to be value engineered. And so I asked Doug, whose staff is always asking for more work, basically, to take the lead on this, not only because you know they were willing, but he has a staff of that generation that's very interested in this and know a lot more about it than I do, or certainly more than other people. So Doug had an informal, what do you want to call, kickoff meeting and involved Mr. Kochek on it, and I saw value in what he brought back to me, and so with that, I'd just like him to report on that. Because I think it's important that we have some sort of internal committee that has a little bit of, you know, citizen input on it, in regards to whether or not we want to put solar panels on the city center, or, you know, use solar to heat our water, or like Doug was telling me, there's even, you know, crazier things. They can put panels on the
Sure.
ball diamonds and, you know, send the energy to the grid and all sorts of things that you wouldn't really even think of. But with that, Doug, I won't put words in your mouth.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
If you can just update them on that, and just that, we just want to make sure that the commission is aware of how we're proceeding on some of these things, and this is one of them.
Yeah, you know, and honestly, it was when we talk about informal, when we met with Steve, it was more, since it's obviously such a hot social topic at the time, you know, and I happen to have some environmentally educated employees, we thought a really, really good idea right now would be to just kind of explore what the city's viability is in the renewable energy arena. You know, we were talking a little earlier about the ball lights. Well, one thing that comes out of that, you know, I don't know what the number is actually going to be, if the 200,000 is going to cover it, or it might be a couple bucks more. But the bottom line is, once you put those in, I mean, there's a 50% plus reduction in what our electric bill is out on the ball diamonds, keeping them on every night for, you know, Little League and for kickball and for events and the likes of that. So, you know, there is going to be money coming back to the city. Well, you know, you can stop there, obviously, but when you've got people that are educated in this and getting more information upon it, I mean, we are in the absolute ideal location to take advantage of renewable energy. Where the sun shines 12 months a year, we've got water, we've got wind, we've got it all. So, I mean, we've got to take a look at some of these things, and I think eventually, you know, the goal of this would be really to offset our budget energy costs, reduce our carbon footprint, and then potentially someday operate totally off the grid. I mean, it would be really cool, and plus the fact we could really be a leader in this, and, you know, stand out amongst the other cities and get a lot of really good publicity for it. So, again, I'm not asking for any money. I'm just kind of just filling you in on what I would like to do going forward. If you want to add more citizens to the committee, that's terrific. I am certainly not looking to increase my workload by any means, but you know, we'd love to head this up if we'd be allowed to.
You've got a good person working with you, Steve Kochek. I mean, he's very passionate about this.
Passionate's a good word. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I love Steve. Steve's great.
It says here the staff recommends this, and it's a committee, and I'm a little confused about that. Aren't committees appointed by the city manager?
I don't know. You know, honestly, we've had an informal meeting, and I brought it to you guys before we even stepped one step forward, so that's all. It was just basically Steve coming down to the rec center, and we threw some ideas around. That was it.
Let me jump in.
Sure. Thanks, Tom.
I think it's appropriate to establish the committee by resolution. The resolution would be setting forth the number of members that you're looking for, how often do they meet, what it's going to take for a quorum, what responsibilities that they're going to have, the terms of their office, things like that, that would give some solidity to whatever you're attempting to do here. As an example, in the city of Dunedin, there are 34 separate boards and committees, and they have a separate resolution for every board so that we know exactly what they are to do and not to do. So, for example, you wouldn't want to create this board and then have them start talking about the charter or reviewing the ordinances. You would want them to concentrate on environmental issues, environmental quality issues, and so forth. So my suggestion, if you want it to move forward, is that I would work with Mr. Andrews and create a resolution to bring back to you for your review and consideration and possible adoption.
And Madam Mayor, if I may, I would ask for a referral just to the next workshop meeting so that I can sit down and discuss with Mr. Andrews, if we do go ahead with this, exactly what the workload is, because you've heard the same sad song before. We are a very lean staff, and so I think we really need to sit down and decipher, you know, how much time and effort we have to devote to this. But it's a very worthwhile cause, and I wanted the board to know that at least, you know, we're taking a look at it, because a lot of times that budget will come around and it's like, okay, let's put up solar panels, and is it 200,000? Is it $2,000, or is it $2 million? And we just throw a number at the wall and see if it sticks sometimes. And so if we were going to do something, I wanted somebody to do a little bit of research. So if I can, I'd like 30 days to work with my staff just to sit down and really kind of decipher, again, how much it's going to take, and then we can maybe take some action on that if the board would agree.
Yes, that sounds like a good idea to me.
Sounds reasonable. How do you go about making the resolution?
I think what we would do between now and then, Madam Mayor, is I'll sit down with staff and say, okay, you know, if this is a real thing after getting all the information, I think what we would do is put down the information that we think that we would recommend and forward it to the city attorney and have him draft it into a resolution and get it to you for your consideration. And if there's parts of that you don't agree with, we can even bring the resolution to another workshop. You know, this isn't something that's, I don't think we're going to put solar panels on the city center this budget cycle. We've got other concerns. But if we just kind of slowly get the ball rolling so we can eventually push it down the hill, I think that's important. So if it takes 3-4 months to get to where we need to be, this isn't one of those things that we got to just crank out like some of the other stuff that we have to do. So I'd rather take this one at a little bit slower pace just to make sure we get it right.
Any more questions? Thank you. Well, I agree. I think we should go forward with this and discuss it at the next workshop.
Yeah, we'll put that on the next workshop, Madam Clerk.
Next item is a discussion on neutral attorney to discuss ramifications of possible referendum.
Madam Mayor, before we make the conversation, again, you're the mayor and you guys are the commission. You can all do what you want, but we are missing a member today. And I think you may be at impasse. I think it might be important. This is probably the most important issue that we're going to take up in some time. And, you know, Commissioner Oakley had mentioned maybe taking up that one resolution about your rules of conduct in a special meeting, which I don't disagree with. I think this needs to probably be, it's certainly my recommendation that you would, A, make sure that you have a full commission, because right now we've got a district that's not represented, and B, that we really give it the thought and that it deserves. And I really believe Commissioner Douthert needs to be part of that conversation. Otherwise, he loses a whole host of, you know, education and information that's unfair to him because he's got a family emergency today. So just my recommendation, you don't have to take it, but I would certainly either A, schedule a special meeting, or at least refer this to the next workshop. And that's not a delay tactic. Again, I feel bad for Mr. Douthert. He's not having a fun day, and I feel bad for him, but he certainly, I think, needs to participate in this because this is going to be a big issue for this commission as a whole for quite some time.
I would agree that we should put it off until the next workshop. I would like to mention, it also says here that campaigns were run primarily on development, and I don't believe that is true. I think the campaigns were run on the fact that we didn't think the people's, well, at least for me, the people's voices were being heard. But saying that, I do recommend we go forward and talk about this at the next workshop.
And Madam Mayor, I don't disagree with you, and I may have misspoke, but again, development, I think, spurred some of that, and I concur with you. But, and again, and you actually caught me on the mistake, and I'll be the first one to admit it. If you want to just hold a special meeting, you certainly can, and I think this is another one of those meetings. I think it's been spoken about a couple of times today. The meeting on this should probably be one of those 6 p.m. meetings where people can go to work and still make it to the meeting on time, because this is a big deal. Either it's going to involve the current litigation, or it's probably going to spur future litigation. And not only does Mr. Douthert need to be here, but I think anybody in the community that's got anything to, you know, say or feel strongly about it should be here. So if you want a special meeting before the next workshop, so this doesn't look like a delay tactic on behalf of the city manager, I understand that. I think Tom's probably prepared today to discuss some of this with you. But again, it's to bring in a neutral party and to talk about that. So, you know, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think somehow we have to A, discuss how we get the neutral party, and then B, discuss how we're going to have that neutral party come on in and tell us exactly, you know, the pros and cons of going A or B.
Well, my thoughts were that you would just give me some authority, $2,500 or $3,500, to hire an outside attorney And I think I had suggested before that you use the city's bond counsel, at least their law firm, their huge law firm, Bryant, Miller and Olive. But I don't have any thoughts one way or the other, but I need to have a little bit of idea as to, when I call these attorneys, I'm going to ask them whether or not that they'd be willing to do this research and render an opinion, how they're going to be paid. And I frankly think that the review of the 6 pending lawsuits and the review of the code and the comprehensive plan is going to require, some 10 to 15 hours probably, and then a couple of hours to issue the actual memo or opinion. And so, that's what my thoughts are. Maybe, give me the authority at the next commission meeting to hire an attorney. And we do this for other municipalities that we represent, so it's not really a big deal to get someone on the outside to issue an opinion when there's been a lot of upheaval in the community. But I don't really have any thoughts other than the need to have some type of price range, and also if you have someone that you're interested in having me speak to, I can do that too. But I would suggest we start with the bond counsel. I haven't talked to them yet. I wanted to hear what was going to go on here today, so they don't know anything about it. But, that's my thoughts on it. It's a lot of exposure to the city. You want to make sure that you get all the questions answered.
Tom, could they give you a consensus approval today to do that, or would they have to do that at the next BOC meeting?
I'd prefer that it be done at the next BOC meeting. But I can, in the meantime, start making phone calls, to try to get someone online and find out an idea as to what they would charge. I would tell you, I think that the hourly rates that you're going to see is probably in the $250 to $350 an hour range. That's not unusual for this type of thing. You remember that, my hourly rate is $185. It's been the same since you hired me, and it was the same for the prior attorney for 4 or 5 years prior to that. So probably the last 10 years there's been no increase in the hourly rate. But I don't think a private attorney and like bond counsel and so forth would be willing to do it at that rate. I think it would be the higher rate, somewhere around $250 to $350. So if we do 10 hours worth of work at the $250, you're talking about $2,500. So I'm suggesting that maybe the range is $3,500 for that opinion.
So then, Madam Mayor, just like that other expenditure, we can just put that on there for expenditure approval, and you'd have the ability to discuss it at the next BOC meeting as well.
Okay.
In the meantime, if we can just authorize the, under consensus, authorize Tom to make some phone calls and make sure that we're not completely out of whack on that number, only because our legal budgets, obviously, because of what's been happening, are pretty strapped. So I'll have to go searching for some dollars, but we definitely can be able to figure this out.
Right, I think you have that consensus.
Yes.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
And the next item is discussion of the website contract.
Madam Mayor, I believe Commissioner Oakley brought it up at the last meeting. I don't disagree with her. I've seen poor websites. I've seen great websites. I think ours is better than some and a lot worse than others. I don't disagree with a facelift that makes it maybe a little more functional. This is one of the first things we accomplished, I believe, back in 2012, because the one that we had prior to that was way worse. The way that I would handle this, just because the contract is expired, is that probably between now and the budget, I can put it out for RFP, so I've got a hard number for you to put into the budget, and that you just handle it through the budget process. It might not be able to be completed, the RFP process, by the time July 1st comes around when I give it to you, but it would certainly be available to you by the time that we go through the amendment process in August or even early September. So all I'm saying is I've got enough time to go through a good RFP process to get some numbers, so we know I think we all are looking at each other now saying we don't need a $4,500 website. Websites cost money. But this is something now that people go to. They watch us on the website. They go there for information. They want their packet. They want to see, development rendering, so on and so forth. So we need a much more functional and more easily navigatable, if that's a word, site. And I don't disagree with you guys, but I think we should just handle it through the budget process instead of right now, because I don't know what to tell you as to a number, nor is there anything budgeted. But I can certainly have that in time for the budget.
Well, I hear a lot of comments, and I'm sure probably everyone here, that the website is not a very good website. It's hard to find things, and we definitely need to get it updated. I know of one person, one citizen who's willing to work on that RFP process, so I think we should go forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we can just do is look at the boilerplate of the last RFP, get that in front of you at a workshop, and you guys can fill in the blanks as you see fit.
The other thing that needs to get hooked up with that is the websites that fall off of it. Say Parks and Rec. You can go to the Parks and Rec website. The city logo is not even on Parks and Rec website. And then it's hooked up to like Rock Park, which isn't even owned by the city. And then you can go to different forms in there. Some forms that let you fill it out online. Some forms you can't. I mean, it's just real awkward. But I found all the other sites it hooks up to, the city's website's not on any of it.
They're not connected, are they?
Well, there's a link.
Different website.
There's a link, like to
Okay.
go to the marina. And I'm using marina as an example. They still have the grunt hunt in the end of March up on their website. So they need to start looking at that. And the way I see it is it ought to be uniform. That you know that you're attached to a city website, and that's uniformity throughout all of the websites that the city uses.
All those things can be discussed during the RFP process. The only thing that I want to make sure is, just so everybody's straight, is we do own Rock Park. That land never transferred. That was donated to us. So
The website.
Understood. But just so that everybody is aware. But yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think that from a functional standpoint, all those things need to be taken into consideration, and we can beat that up at the next workshop. But just remember, an RFP process, a good one, takes 4 or 5 months, because you got to leave it out on the streets long enough. You got to have them take a look at your site. You got to give them time to get it in. You got to have time to debate it, and then you have time to get it to you guys. So 4, 5, 6 months for an RFP process is not outlandish, and we don't have any staff to do it right now. We'll handle that either within my office, the city clerk's office, or the finance department. But
Well, as I said, we have a citizen who's interested in helping with that process.
And that's great, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't take the time that,
Right.
The duration of time. We'll take any free labor we can get, but in terms of that, it's going to take some time. So all I'm trying to say is the specifics that you want to see, give that some thought, program yourself to dream about it this next 30 days, because we really need to come up with that quick. Otherwise, and nothing has to be fast. If we can throw a number into the budget, and if it's not enough or if it's too much, we can evaluate it at that time. So we know what the first one cost, and we know what we got. So we can go from there.
Okay. Any comment from the audience? All right, well, we are adjourned at 4:34.